Building a character in games is actually a lot more simple than a lot of people think. In this video, I'm going to be going over how to build out your own personalized character in Path of Exile 2, but the same general idea discussed here can be used in just about every video game and in a number of other areas as well. Before we start, I do want to say that this video is not about making the most powerful, top-ranked Path of Exile character. If you want to do that, you'll either have to copy the top players' builds beat for beat, or put a lot of time, thought, and playtesting into the character you're building. Regardless, whether being top ranked is your goal or you're just looking for a personalized build to carry you through endgame, this video should lay out the groundwork for you to do that. There is one simple step that is central to making yourself a powerful character. That step is to pick a theme and focus on that almost single-mindedly. There are a lot of different themes or specializations you can pick in Path of Exile 2. A few examples are minions, attack speed, attack power, block builds, elemental builds, which themselves can be split into fire, ice, and electricity builds. And beyond these, there are any number of other builds which you can use to make a successful character. For new players, picking a theme may be a bit of a daunting task, especially when you're not familiar with the game and its dynamics. But I found that there's a rather simple technique that works for me when building out my characters. Basically, what I'll do is I'll imagine a rather vague image of what I think a cool character will be or a fun to play character would be. For my first character, I just kind of imagined a character with a lot of really powerful minions. And as a quick side note, the minion build is actually the easiest character to play as a beginner. Since the minions attack on their own, it allows you to focus on dodging more than you otherwise would be able to. The build is one of the easiest ones to create, and it ends up being reasonably powerful by the end of the game. Once you've got an image in your head of the kind of character you want, go to the character creation screen and scroll through the characters. Pick the one that's description most closely matches what you're imagining. At this point, you should jump into the game with this character and take a look at the passive skill tree. If you'd prefer, you can play into the game a little ways to get a feel for how the character runs first, but you should do this next step within the first few levels of your character. Take a look at the passive tree and determine what your main theme is in more concrete terms. Pick out one trait that will be your main theme, which you're specializing in, and at least one trait that will be your main complementary trait. For example, if you want your character to have attack speed as its primary specialization, it could have critical hit chance and or general damage buffs as its complementary attribute. Take some time to find the most powerful passives on the skill tree for your main trait. You can use the search function in the upper right hand corner to make this easier. Once you've found what appears to you to be powerful passives on your side of the skill tree, plan out a rough path to get these passives. This is one of the places where if you want to make a top ranked build, you're going to have to put a lot of thought into the path you take, but for our purposes, we're going to take a more loose approach that while it may not get you the top ranked spot, it will still give you a character that will do decent through your endgame play. With getting to these powerful passives in mind, look at a few different routes that will get you to them. There are two things you'll want to focus on. Number one, which route passes by the most traits that match your primary and complementary traits that we determined earlier. The second thing to consider is which path passes by all of these using the shortest route. For my monk build, I decided to go on a attack speed focus kind of build. Two of the prominent passives that I found for this were Falcon Technique, 1% increased attack speed per 15 dexterity, and then Falcon Dive, which is 1% increased attack speed per 250 accuracy rating. For this, I went up the center here to get attack damage and more skill and attack speed based passives. I decided to go up this way rather than going, say, this route, so I could grab more attack speed here. And then if I continue on here after grabbing this, passing down this over to here, and then to this other one, I will pass by more melee attack speed and melee damage on the way, and also up here is a lot of quarterstaff, attack speed, and other bonus quarterstaff related things that are not too far off from my main path, which I'll be able to grab. For my minion build, there were many passives that I wanted to get that looked particularly powerful for me. Two of those were reduced reservation for my minions, so I could get more minions, and 8% of physical damage as chaos damage to help me kill unique and boss monsters. To get these, I took a more direct route to the reduced reservation. I did this partially because I'm impatient and wanted to get that as soon as possible. Might not have been the best route, but I still think it was pretty good in the end. On my way there, I grabbed the many minion bonuses that were there. I ultimately chose to go this way because I got to this relatively quickly and I managed to pass by a lot of other things that would give me minion bonuses as well. So I ended up getting a lot of these in a reasonable amount of skill points. Look through a few of your options and choose a route that you believe fits this criteria. Don't worry about getting this perfect unless you're trying to build that top ranked character. Just a little bit of thought into this should be enough to get you something decent. From this point on, moving forward is mostly pretty straightforward. Just continue to level up and grab the primary and complementary passives as you go. There are a few more things to consider though if you want your character to be good for the entirety of the game. I'm just going to pass over skill and support gems really quickly. There are too many variations to cover everything in this video, but when deciding what to use, you'll want to use the skills and supports that fit your main theme, and then with whatever space is left over, you should pick out things that seem more generally useful, powerful, or if you're going for a more casual playthrough, you can just pick out what seems fun and interesting to you. For a build like my sorceress, which I actually made a bit overcomplicated just because it seemed more fun, she's meant to use every element rather than focusing on one. Generally, it's better to focus on one, but I wasn't going for a super powerful build. I just wanted something that seemed kind of cool and entertaining for me. But one of the actually good support traits that fit this main theme is the Rising Tempest, which is supported skill deals 12% more elemental damage for each skill used recently of a different elemental type. So that fits in perfectly with the kind of sorceress build that is based around a theme of using all of the elements. I'll also quickly say, take some time to look at your ascendancy options when you get to that point in the game, and pick the option that most closely aligns with your main theme. Now, you should try to stick to your main theme as much as possible, but a general rule is true about doing this. The more you focus on specializing, the more powerful your strengths will be, but it is also true that your weaknesses will become more pronounced, more significant as well. So, while 80% of our focus should be put into strengthening the main traits, at least 20% should be focused on achieving at least the minimum basic requirements for the other areas needed in the game. There are 3 basic areas that need to be covered. In no particular order, those things are damage against a single enemy, such as bosses or unique creatures, damage against multiple enemies. You'll need to be able to take out a number of weaker enemies. If you can't, you'll just get overwhelmed by mobs. And you'll need at least a minimum level of defense, which is energy shield, evasion, armor, and the various resistances. When covering the other areas that your main trait doesn't cover, you'll want to generally focus these into one area to whatever degree you decide to go into them. For example, your defense should be primarily one of the 3 mentioned earlier. There are characters that use multiple defense types, but even those characters will have one of the defense types being primary and the other more of a secondary buff to your defenses. Your resistances, they don't have to be perfect, but they should not be terrible. Figuring out how much you should diverge your character from your main theme can vary greatly depending on your build, playstyle, and skill level. So what you should do here is take a kind of trial and error approach. Grab a few passives to cover the areas you are deficient in that are close to your already planned out path. If you feel like you're dying too easily or not doing enough damage, grab a few more of these as you level up, and then switch back to concentrating on your main theme. It is incredibly easy to respec your character in this game, so don't worry about messing up. You can always respec if you feel like you grab too many of these divergent passives, or if you feel like you need an immediate addition to these divergent areas. Equipment is an important aspect of Path of Exile 2 and will be a significant factor in your defense, though it also makes a huge difference in your offensive stats as well. When picking out your equipment, first look to see that it matches your defense type. Next, you should look to grab equipment that gets your resistances to a point that it's not shit. The easiest way to do this is using the rune slots you can add to most of your equipment. Once you've done this, you should go all in on your main theme with the modifiers, and with whatever's left over in regards to your equipment, use those spaces to cover your deficiencies. Generally speaking, once steps 1 and 2 are covered, you should approach your equipment much in the same way you do your passives. A quick recommendation: do not use your equipment to cover attribute requirements. This will unnecessarily limit your options for your equipment set. It is far better in the long run to get the attributes from the skill tree. You should pass by plenty of the needed passives as you go, so it should not be difficult to get what you need. A quick recap of the video: go all in on a main main theme and diverge only as much as is required to meet the bare minimum for any other needed area. If you do this, you will have a powerful character that will carry you through endgame. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching and have fun.